So Charlie Munger, when I got to know him, he insisted that Li Lu and I should meet each other once a month for lunch. So I told Charlie, well, if Li Lu wants to waste his time with a yo-yo like me, I'm more than happy to do that. And so when I was in California, now Li Lu has moved to Seattle. Do most of you know who Li Lu is? Most people don't know who Li Lu is, so I'm like barking up the wrong tree. So let me go a little further back to first explain Li Lu, and then we'll get to the Chinese liquor, and then we'll get to Anheuser-Busch, and hopefully all that will happen before it's all pumpkins and mice. But going back a little further, because there's some lessons in each of this. So Charlie Munger said that he read Barron's for nearly 50 years. I think all of you know what Barron's is. And so Barron would show up every week at his home and he'd read it. And each issue of Barron's probably has at least, 5 or 10 stock ideas, probably at least 10 different stock ideas. They have different write-ups and people are, talking about different businesses and all that. And so if you take each Barron's issue having 10 ideas and you have 50 issues in a year, you have 500 ideas in a year. And then if you go 50 years, it's 25,000 ideas. So Charlie says that for 50 years he read Barron's. He read all these 25,000 ideas and he never acted on them. Okay. And then in 2003, after 50 years of reading Barron's, he reads one idea in Barron's that really excites him. But suddenly Charlie is seeing something in this write-up which he could not see in the previous 25,000 write-ups. And he had about $10 million of loose change lying around. And he put the 10 million into this company that the world thought was going to go bankrupt. It was Tenneco, it was an auto parts company. So the bonds were very distressed. The bonds were down to like 20 cents on the dollar. And the stock was very distressed. And the whole thing was very distressed. But Charlie somehow was super excited about it. And he put 10 million into Tenneco. And then about 3 years later, the 10 million had turned into 80 million. Okay. Well done, Charlie. Well done. Okay. And then Charlie decides to take the 80 million, give it to this Chinese guy that he's met once to manage for him. And the Chinese guy who he's met once is Li Lu. Okay. So I asked Charlie, I said, hey, Charlie, you meet this guy from China one time, okay? And you take the 80 million, which is little more than loose change now, and just give it all to him. Why would you do that? So he said, well, Monish, it was a no-brainer. I said, why was it a no-brainer? He said, because I just looked at the guy's track record. So Li Lu was a student leader in Tiananmen Square. And he was one of the main instigators of Tiananmen Square. And the Chinese government basically wanted to hang him at high noon and be done with him. And so somehow he managed to escape to Hong Kong. And then a bunch of, Chinese, dissidents in Hong Kong helped him come to the US. And he got admitted to Columbia University. And Columbia admitted him into 3 programs at the same time. So he did 3 simultaneous degrees at Columbia. He did an undergraduate degree in physics. At the same time, he did an MBA at Columbia. And at the same time, he did a law degree at Columbia. And when he entered Columbia, he spoke no English. And the university basically gave him a free ride because he came with no money. So, they said, okay, we'll fund you. And so what they used to do is, like, let's say there was, $20,000 of expenses for the semester. They would give him the 20,000, then he'd pay the fees and, have money for his living and all that. The float on the money they kept giving him every quarter or every semester, he started to invest that. So, like, for example, he got money in January and it doesn't need to be paid to the landlord till March. We got 2 months of float. That's a long time. Okay. So he invested that 2 months of float. So by the time Lilu finished at Columbia with near the top of his class in all 3 degrees, he had converted that float money into $1 million. Okay. So, and and then Charlie said, I just looked at what the guy was doing. And to me, it was a no-brainer. So he gave 80 million to Li Lu, which very quickly Li Lu turned into 800 million. And I think now that money that Charlie gave to Li Lu might be sitting at like 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4 billion or something. So now that we know what who Li Lu is, and when Charlie says, Monish, you should have lunch with Li Lu, I told Charlie, if he wants to meet the yo-yo for lunch, the yo-yo is very ready to meet him. And so I used to meet Li Lu once a month for lunch. Okay. And I told Li Lu, look, so whenever I meet somebody for lunch, I don't drink alcohol and I don't smoke, but I do like great food. So I said, Li Lu, listen, near your home is Din Tai Fung. Have any of you heard of Din Tai Fung? A few nods. That's awesome. We have a few nods. It hasn't come to Toronto yet, but it'll come soon. In the meanwhile, whenever you go to other cities, you can have Din Tai Fung. Anyway, it's a Taiwanese dumpling place. So I said, listen, while we are having great conversation, we'll meet at Din Tai Fung once a month. He said, yeah, that's fine. So I meet Li Lu one time, and he's telling me about this obscure Korean company called Amore Pacific. Okay. And he's trying to explain there, like the cosmetics business, this and that, whatever. And I finished that lunch. I went back. I tried to look. Everything's in Korean. And then I found some places in California which carried their products. And I went to those stores. I could not make out head or tail of this business. Okay. Way outside circle of competence. So I said, okay, whatever, Amore, whatever. And then after about 18 months or 2 years of meeting, he tells me, yeah, so did you invest in Amore Pacific? I said, Lilu, I couldn't make head or tail. He said, it's gone up 600x. Okay. So then Lilu tells me, Monish, you should buy Mao Thai. I said, Lilu, I'm done with these wacko names. So here's what we're going to do. Don't tell me go buy this and go buy that. Please spoon feed me everything I need to know. Because when I leave this lunch, everything in Mao Thai is going to be in Chinese. And then I won't be able to do anything. And then I want to meet you after 2 years and it's gone up 100x. And I'm, again, the idiot who did nothing with it. So he said, well, you could have asked me that about Amore. I would have explained it to you. I said, well, now I'm asking. Please explain, spoon feed me Mao Thai. So Mao Thai is now it is the most valued liquor company in the world. It's above every other liquor company. It only has one product. Okay. The product costs about $1.50, less than $2 per bottle to make. And the last time I checked, it was about $1,400 per bottle that they sell it for. So like a 99.9% like operating margin. And so I asked him a bunch of questions about Mao Thai. It was very obvious this was a remarkable business and it actually had gone down in price for temporary reasons. And I made an investment in Mao Thai. And Mao Thai instantly started elevating, moving up in price. Life is good. And I told Lilu, if you want to take the lunches to twice a month, I'm all for that too. In fact, if you want to meet me every day for lunch, that's also okay. He said, we'll keep it to once a month. I said, okay, that's fine. And so a few years after that, I decided that the Mao Thai had become such a big part of the portfolio that maybe I should go visit the company. So I made a trip to China, and Mao Thai is in the middle, very obscure, remote area of China, which nobody would ever go to. And my friend Guy Spear came with me, and my daughter came with me, and we went to Mao Thai headquarters. And because Lee was a big shareholder and he helped set this up, they had arranged a great banquet for us at the Mao Thai Museum, And so At the banquet, Guy Spears with me and my daughter's with me. So Guy Spear tells the host, we don't want you to get offended, but my friend Monish here does not drink alcohol. And is it possible to get him a Coke? So they said, within this hallowed ground of this restaurant, there are only two liquids that are served. It's water and Mao Thai. And we would be offended if he did not consume Mao Thai. So, it's, if you ever get a chance to have Mao Tai, tiny serving like this small, you have it neat. It's like diesel going straight in. It's like concentrated diesel. That's all I can describe it as. And I didn't want to offend the host, so I took one sip, and then my insides were burning for the next 3 days. So that was my experience, my one and only experience with liquor. But anyway, coming back to Anheuser-Busch. So I think the thing with Anheuser-Busch is what we'd have to know is we have these kind of changes in human tastes and trends. Is that noise or is that signal? It still has a dominant position. It's still a great business in many different ways. We have to look at the